back by popular demand. In fact, the entire planet was demanding that we have Michelle back on the show today. So again, back by popular demand, we have Michelle as a guest to walk us through thematically the ultimate guide, or this will become the ultimate guide for spa directors looking to hire talent. So Michelle, thanks for coming back on.
Thank you for having me. I love to be here.
So let's start with the biggest problem facing spa directors today that are looking to hire talents. What is the biggest problem facing them today?
Yeah, so it's just really finding good people and getting them to apply and actually, either go online and apply, walk in. It's really just finding good people. So I would love to talk today about how to go about kind of recruiting and finding good people for your business, whether that's, massage therapist, esthetician, hairstylists, nail technicians, front desk staff, whatever that may be. How to go about finding those people, and then talk a little bit about what that interview process should look like, and kind of some tips for actually using, conducting the actual interview, and some mistakes, things to try not to do in the interviewing process. And then while you're interviewing people, then how to go about picking, like, who am I going to hire? Who out of these people should be on my team?
Let's do it. So where do we start?
So to get started, and some of these are conventional, non-conventional means. These are things that in my 23 years as a spa director, and now an additional 5 years as a spa consultant, giving advice to others has come in really handy. And of course, in the times we're in, the world is opening back up. Things are getting more open again. So hopefully these will apply going forward. So one of the first things you can do is hold a job fair at your spa, at your salon. Advertise this on social media, get the word out. You can also put this on, LinkedIn, Indeed, different sites. So, have an open house where it's more of a relaxed setting. Interviewing can be really intimidating for people. And there's some people I think that probably just get really stressed out about the process, and having maybe a little bit more of a, come in, also get a chance to come in and check out our business. We can get to know you, you can get to know us in a little bit more of a relaxed setting. Maybe you have hors d'oeuvres, you could serve cocktails, maybe not though. Maybe have some kombucha instead, something non-alcoholic, but some refreshments. Where you can then, also give them a tour as if they are coming in as a client. So, show them your facility. Maybe have one of your lead technicians or someone on your team who is an amazing team member, be able to come in and talk to the applicants and maybe tell them, why I love working here. And, see that from an employee perspective, I think can be great for them beyond just speaking to a manager or an owner. To get a little bit of insight, maybe they can also ask some questions. And then it's up to you if you want to conduct some, pre-screening or mini interviews during that, you can. You could also just, give that as an opportunity for people to obviously then go ahead and apply if they've come in and they've checked you out and it looks like an environment that they would like to work in. Then you can obviously invite those people back for that in-person interview that you feel would be a good fit. So that would be something I would, start off with, especially when you're hiring for multiple positions. So if you're in a situation where you need pretty much everything, like you need people at your front desk, you need massage therapists, and you're really open to just like finding people for multiple positions, an open house scenario, job fair can work out really well to get, a bunch of people in the door all at once.
So sorry to interrupt,
yes.
But quick question that jumps to mind with the alcohol, the cocktail idea. Is there something to be said about, well, let me set this up with, let me finish the question, then I'll provide some context as to where this thought came from. Is there some merit in having some sort of, for lack of a better way of characterizing it, hidden test inside of the environment that is in this case, job fair type environment, where you're sussing out who is going to respond to what And the what in this case would be the cocktails, and observing how they operate when they have what seems to be free license to be a drunkard or something like that. And this is coming from maybe, I'm sorry, let me give you some context here, because I think this will be necessary to understand what the hell I'm asking. I remember hearing about this CEO that would bring people out to lunch, and if they put salt on their food before tasting it, he would decline them immediately. And the reason why is because that was a signal as to their character and their proclivity to go about changing things before understanding why the thing is the way it was, in this case, the food dish, which is something like Chesterton's, I think it's Chesterton's fence, which is the idea of, hey, this fence has been here on this plot of land for 1,000 years. Before we go demolish it, let's figure out why it's there. So is there something like that where you maybe want to intentionally set up certain, I don't know what the term would be, little mini tests or hidden tests or something, right? Like the salt example or Chesterton's fence example, or in this job fair idea of, hey, let's put out a bunch of booze and put no restrictions on it. And the people that consume a bunch, yeah, don't hire them. But the people that handle it with grace or whatever, like a little hidden test, that's the person we should hire. Is there something to that, you think?
I don't know if there's something to that. I personally wouldn't necessarily advise on testing people in that way. I think, if that's your nature and that's what you want to do, I wouldn't necessarily set up tests. I think that there are things that are going to naturally probably occur in the environment that you can observe. You can observe people, how they're interacting with other potential applicants. Again, having that staff member come in and give the opportunity for them to ask questions. What kind of questions are these people asking? I think there's so much else that you can observe as far as the types of questions that they ask, how they interact with others, without having to create these hurdles to see, if they can get past these hurdles, so to speak. So I wouldn't necessarily, again, to each his own. If that's fun for you, I try to make it fair for everyone and not maybe create an environment that, is trying to set people up to fail. You want to weed people out, but we'll get to kind of how you can go about doing that without having to create these tests.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And the second thing that I found to be really a productive thing when it comes to finding good people is create a referral program for your current employees. So if they refer someone to you who ends up staying, let's say 90 days, makes it past that initial phase, you can, incentivize them with like a referral bonus. I think this works twofold because no one wants to work with people who are not good to work with. So, if you have someone working for you and they know this person is a horrible employee, they're probably not going to go through the process of disrupting their whole work environment just to get a referral bonus. Like they too want someone there who, they enjoy working with this person, not only because maybe this person's fun to be around, but they also know that their work ethic is good and it's not going to create more work for the rest of the team. So really creating some kind of program where your employees know, okay, if I find someone good that joins the team and stays, I'm going to be rewarded for this. So that would be kind of the next step. And then the third thing would be to, as the world is opening back up, I encourage you to always, as business owners, as managers, to participate in community events. So to get out and make connections, whether it's some type of festival, some way where you can promote your services. So whether you're going out and you're giving, free massages or skincare consultations or whatever it is, that kind of service that you provide, when you get out and you're participating, and maybe it's a type of situation where they're raising money for something. So you're supporting an organization. People are going to see, okay, well, this particular business supports this cause, and this is also something that, I feel strongly about. That's the type of person and the type of environment that I want to work in. So, getting yourself out into the community and people can see that this is a business that supports the community. You're going to then find people that want to work for you that also are like-minded people that, want to give back. So that would be my third thing on the list. And fourth, again, you can kind of do this when you're out in the community or just out living your daily life, is recruit people who deliver excellent customer service. So I used to do this all the time. I know the last time we were talking, you talked about an experience at Nordstrom. And I remember just always getting really great customer service at Nordstrom. And I handed out my business card several times to employees at Nordstrom saying, I'm looking for, this position. A lot of times those were like front desk positions where someone, had to be friendly, had to be in a front facing role. We're answering the phones, like really needed to deliver excellent customer service from beginning to end. And so I was always giving out my card to people that I just experienced a good service with. And I encouraged my staff to do the same. So our staff then also had a business card that they could write their name on. And it was something like the business card was something like, thanks so much for, delivering excellent customer service today. We would love to have you join our team. And then, they can say, this is where I work. We're hiring right now for this particular position. Would you, be interested in applying? Just give them the card. Obviously, it's up to them if they want to go online and apply. But if they do, they can then say, so-and-so referred me. And again, that kind of goes back to that whole referral bonus. If they're actually actively out helping to recruit, that's just one more way, again, to get more people helping to contribute to the process of helping you build teams and have your own team members say, like, this is someone who I think would be a good addition to our team. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Love it.
I've got more, I can keep going.
Hit me. Let's go. Let's do it.
I think it's also great on your website to have, besides just obviously you're promoting your business to potential clients, it's also a great way to promote yourself to potential employees. So whether that's under, the career section on your website, but to have a place on there where there's like a day in the life of a spa employee, something where it showcases, it can just be like, 30 seconds, 60 second, 1 minute, doesn't need to be a 10-minute long video. It can be a short clip of just kind of showing what it's like to work here at our spa, at our salon. So whether that's, showing kind of the processes they're going through, what an opening procedure would look like, what closing looks like at the business, just interactions that they have with guests. So people can see, like, this is what it's like to work in this business, and they can kind of get a feel from that video.
I love that idea. I'm going to steal that.
I didn't know if there was a question for that.
See, the problem with that for me and my work would be mostly a video of me in my own apartment, and that would bore the world to tears. But in a spa, that's an amazing idea. It's a very, very cool idea. And that
but even for you, I mean, you could still, okay, I record podcasts. This is part of my job. You know what I mean? Like, you could still show, like, this is, these are the things that I do in my day, or what it's like for you to work from home and work for this company. I think a lot of businesses can still do that, but yeah, definitely Michelle, kind of getting in the spa.
I have to say, Michelle, the commute when working from home, the commute is a nightmare. I had to walk all the way from right there to right here. It's an absolute nightmare. God,
well, at least you're getting your steps in, right?
Yeah, all 2 steps. Anyway, okay, let's continue. I want to deliver the highest knowledge per minute, and I think we're on track to do that.
Yeah, and then kind of the last 2 things. So kind of, what a lot of people are probably doing already. LinkedIn, Indeed, also job boards at spa networks, so like iSpa, different industry companies that are popular within the industry, have job boards that you can advertise on. Also your local schools, so your local massage, aesthetic, cosmetology schools, have job boards. And then I also encourage you to go into those schools and be a speaker. I know that they always used to reach out to me and say, we have a career day coming up. We're looking for speakers to come in, and, you can promote your business, but also like talk to the students about different topics. So, getting in there, even if let's say it's outside of your comfort zone, maybe as an owner or manager, maybe you don't like speaking to groups, but maybe you, again, have like an esthetician or a massage therapist, someone on your team who's comfortable speaking to groups. and likes to go out into the community to help promote the business. You could, send someone else instead, but it's really just a great way for you then to have that connection with the school too, and know the instructors at the school, the people who run the school. So that way, they can tell too, like when they've got a class of people, they'll be like, oh, this person is shining above the rest. That could also be an in there for them to be able to, reach out to you and say, I have this person who, even though, they're just coming out of school with no experience, they're really amazing. I would like to send them to you if you have an opening. And I would always just encourage you, even if you don't have openings, always interview people. Like if someone's reaching out to you and saying, I've got this great person, interview them anyway. You may find a way to be able to fit that person into your schedule in some capacity, or you never know that same day someone could be resigning. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's always great to interview any potential, great candidates that people have said, even though I know you don't have an opening right now, I'd really like you to meet this person. So really just be open and, try to fit in those interviews as you can. Yes. I think any questions before we move on to interviewing?
Yeah, well, mostly a note for the audience, or I guess, well, viewers and listeners would comprise the audience. But in any case, Jim Collins has this book called From Good to Great. And one of the ideas in the book is get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. I can speak with or from experience, having interviewed someone in the past where we had no role at all for anyone. And after meeting her, I realized we need to make a role to get her on the bus. So I think that your point about just interview them anyway, if they've got rave reviews, is an astute one. So no further questions.
Yeah. And I mean, I just always found in my career, it just always kind of worked out. Like when I did that, when I interviewed that great person, just somewhere or another, like I said, before you know it, someone's leaving. It's like a week later, someone's resigning because they're moving out of the, state, or something happens. And you're like, wow, that's just like works out that you then have this great person waiting in the wings. Or, it just could be like, maybe it isn't the right time. Maybe you really can't fit them in right now, but maybe 6 months from now you can, and they really want to join your team, and it just all works out.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
so the next I'd like to, before we get into like the actual interview, kind of like the interview process and some things to kind of keep in mind when you're preparing for interviewing people, or kind of the pre-screening process. When you are looking at people's resumes, really try to be unbiased. I think a lot of people look at resumes and make a lot of assumptions about people, where maybe there's perceptions about the age of the person, where they live. They think, okay, well, that person lives too far away, so why would they want to work here? Or people think, oh, well, I see that they graduated in this year, so they're probably this age. They might be married with kids, and if they have kids, it's going to be difficult for them to work the schedule I want. They're making all these assumptions. Make no assumptions. Do not pay attention to people's names. Be as unbiased as you can, and as open as you can, and really just looking at whatever it is that's important to you. Obviously, if it's do they have experience or not? Is their experience relevant? Those things, not so much, these other things that people tend to, I think, pay attention to that have no bearing on whether this person's going to be a good employee or not. And definitely using scripts. So I know we talked about this last time too, you need to have structure. You need to be asking everyone the same questions for the same positions. And you want to do phone pre-screening. You can definitely rule out most people just by the phone pre-screen alone. So of course, you're going to be asking things like their availability. If you need someone to work every weekend, and this person says, I cannot work every weekend, that is not the person for you. So don't waste their time, don't waste your time. And be very direct about that. If it's like, no, I need someone who can be here every single Saturday, and they're like, well, I think I can do 2 Saturdays a month. If 2 Saturdays a month is not going to work, then that's not the right person for you. So you can really pre-screen out a lot of things. Again, do they have the license that's needed? If they don't, are they able to get it? What's the timeline for that? I had people who didn't have a license in DC. They were licensed in Maryland or Virginia. And that process could take months. It wasn't, a simple process. Could I wait months for that candidate? A lot of times I could not. But occasionally, maybe I could. But you want to make sure, yes, do they have the proper schooling? Do they have the proper license? Is the experience level what I need for this position? And also, so during that process, I think it's really important in the pre-screening and in the actual interviewing to do what's called behavioral interviewing. So behavioral interviewing focuses on a candidate's past experiences by asking candidates to provide specific examples of how they demonstrated certain behaviors, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And if you don't know what behavioral interviewing is, or you're looking for examples, there are definitely courses that you can take, and I would highly recommend that. But you can also just Google behavioral interviewing questions if you literally are like, I don't have time to take a class, and I would like to try this process. So just kind of an example of that would be, let's say it was during the phone pre-screening, and you want to make sure that, you're trying to make sure that your employees are people that are going to show up on time. Knowing that, in a busy city, all kinds of crazy things can happen on a daily basis, especially in Washington, D.C. You might get stuck with, the president's motorcade going through for 20 minutes, or there's protests blocking the street. I mean, it's just like every city has its challenges. So you want to see, like, how do people handle these situations? So an example of a behavioral interviewing question would be, tell me about a time when you knew you were going to be late to work. What did you do and how did it turn out? Be specific. So you're literally, obviously, like, you want to see how they speak as well. But you want to see, like, this is a very realistic situation that happens on a pretty regular basis. How are you going to make sure you get to work on time? So, if this person, depending on how they answer, if they're like, well, I always give myself, an hour and a half to get there, even if I know it only takes me 30 minutes. Okay, well, that's a good answer. Or, this is what happened, and I called my employer, and, they were able to move my first client. And as soon as I got there, I was able to, take my next client, and my day was smooth after that. For the future, I then pay attention to when there are going to be marathons in town. So I knew about the road closures, so you get some information into what's really going on and how this person operates and how they can navigate problems and find solutions to those problems. So yeah, so definitely I would use, pick a couple of those to use during the pre-screening as a way to, again, kind of decide who I'm gonna interview or not. And during that pre-screening, let's say I have 15 people to call. I may call all 15 and complete all 15 before I decide who I'm gonna have come in for the actual interview. So, if I'm doing a pre-screen, I'm like, wow, this person is like, they're hitting it out the park. Like, they sound amazing. They're answering everything correctly. They have everything I need. I may go ahead and set up an interview with them. But if I'm kind of on the fence, I may wait till I've finished all of my interviews to then go back and say, okay, well, out of the 15, these are the 3 that I think we should have come in for an interview, and then obviously call back in and set up those in-person interviews. And obviously you can do phone, you can do Zoom. I think obviously, in the last couple of years, people have gotten way more comfortable with using Zoom, but I think at some point, obviously, you need to have them come in and do that in-person interview. And you look like you have a question, Austin.
No, I'm
no questions.
You'll be listening.
Okay. And so, yeah, so if we want to then kind of jump into my recommendations for how to go about conducting a successful interview. The first thing is, if this is possible, this isn't always possible, to conduct the interview with yourself and one other person. So whether that's, if you're the spa director, if you've got an assistant manager, or you have a lead massage therapist, someone else that you can kind of bring in. Or let's say, I worked in a hotel spa before, so there was someone else I could bring in from a different department. Maybe there was someone in HR, or even someone on an F&B team. Like, there was another employee in the company I could have come in and sit with me in that interview. Again, using that behavioral interview process, asking the same questions. So at the end, we can compare notes. Maybe there's something they heard or interpreted differently than I did. So we can have a discussion about that afterwards. So it's not just one person's perception of the interview, but you can actually have 2 people kind of giving feedback on who they think would be the best candidate.
Hmm.
You want me to keep it? I'll
Please
keep going.
continue.
And then of course, depending upon the position. So let's say, if it was a massage therapist, esthetician, or nail technician, or a hairstylist, I always had them do a practical hands-on. So, the people, you made it through the pre-screen, you made it through the in-person interview, and now it's time to come in and do a practical. So that may mean doing, and again, if you can have this done on 2 people. So if I had a massage therapist come in and do a 30-minute, try to do a 30-minute full body massage on me, it's a little difficult. So sometimes I would have them do a full 1 hour full body massage. I would also have them come in with my lead massage therapist. So again, at the end of that, we can compare notes. This also is a good opportunity to see, like, when this person comes in to do the practical, how are they interacting with other staff members that they might encounter? If there's guests that they may encounter, because I used to have them sit in, a lot of times I didn't have that much space. So when someone was waiting to interview, they would be in the guest lounge. So are they interacting with the guests? Are they talking with them? Are they having a good interaction? How were they with the front desk staff? Like how did they treat the front desk staff? Or even, the people, the locker room attendants, like how did they interact with them? And when they're in the room actually performing the practical exam, do they seem to, feel comfortable in the environment with the products, with the equipment, moving around the space? Even if it's just like taking the linens off the bed, like, do they seem to have a sense of, the duties that are required of a technician to utilize that space? Kind of how are they moving about in the space? If all of a sudden, if a really loud song comes on, like, do they have the wherewithal to think, like, or ask where the volume knob is or something to adjust? Just like, how are they using this space? So again, I don't set these tests up. I wouldn't say, okay, let's make sure we crank the music up, 15 minutes into this treatment, or, drop something really loud outside the door. No, I don't, but these things just naturally occur. Like, there's going to be things that happen when that person is in the spa, and, how do they react to that? That will be a good indication then of, on a day-to-day basis, how this person may handle problems that always come up. There's always going to be something that's going to happen in a day. Yeah. And again, making sure you're using those behavioral interviewing questions for all the candidates. Like I said, if you can take a course, great. If not, just look on Google. Just another example, though, would be, I think everyone wants someone on their team who is a team player. So another example would be something like, if you could please describe a time when you were having difficulty with a fellow worker. Please describe the situation, like the problem, what you did, what the outcome was, try to be specific with that. So you can see, everyone's had a difficult coworker. Right? Who hasn't had someone that they're working with, they're not crazy about working with. And to be able to talk about that, and and maybe if it's someone coming straight out of school, maybe they haven't worked before, like, someone at school, like someone, another student that maybe you didn't click with and something happened. How, what did you do in that situation, and how did it turn out? And kind of the last thing before we talk about kind of things that can go wrong or things to not do. If let's say you're hiring for, I used to do this sometimes when I was hiring for front desk position specifically. If I had someone who had never worked in a spa or salon environment before, so maybe they had only been in office jobs, so they were never really like in a client facing environment. So like if they had worked in retail, obviously they were interacting with guests. If they had worked at maybe like a doctor's office, they were having an interface with clients over the phone or in person. But if they were always just kind of in a back office, in an office job, and they were never really in a position where they're talking face to face with clients, I would sometimes, for someone who I thought, this person though, this may be a good role for them, they've just not done something like this before I would actually officially hire them, another step to that interview process would be to have them come in and be at the front desk for an hour, maybe 2 max, to kind of observe And so it was a good way, again, for us to see how they interact with clients walking in the door. Do they interact with them at all? Like, or are they ignoring people? How are they interacting with the other front desk staff members? When maybe a therapist comes up to the front, how are they interacting with them? Again, if something kind of happens while they're there, how are they responding to that? And of course, they're not trained. They don't know your policies and procedures. So they're not going to know how to handle problems per se, but what do they kind of intuitively do? How do they react? You know, the fire alarm used to go off. You know what I mean? Like this was something that would happen. Like if they just happen to be there, how are they reacting to the situation? What are they doing? That's obviously an extreme, but these things happen. Floods happen. Things go wrong. Computers freeze. You kind of have to see then, what would be something that they would potentially do to remedy that situation, even if it's just how they're speaking with that person that's waiting while they're trying to check out. Because it's also, I think there's this perception of working in a spa is, oh, it's like I'm running around in my robe and sandals and it's relaxing and everyone's happy and this is a great atmosphere. It's good for them to get to that front desk and really kind of observe what's really going on before they jump into a role that may be something completely different than what they expected.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just soaking it all in. Soaking it all in.
I know. And like I said, so now to talk about kind of some things, what not to do. So the one, I think the number one thing that I see people making the mistake doing is hiring too quickly. So they, people all of a sudden, they'll be like, I lost several estheticians or massage therapists all at once. And they're concerned about the loss of revenue, whether they're coming from an ownership standpoint where they're like, we need the money to pay our bills. Or, they're reporting to someone else and they're like, I need to make my numbers. I have a budget, I need to make sure we're making our numbers. They will sometimes, bring people on just to fill a space. So, it's like, they've got a room to fill, they've got a chair to fill. And they're like, I just need a warm body. I just need someone in here who, can at least service this client and we can, get the revenue that we need. It's always a bad decision. It never turns out well. Because that person can do more harm to your business than good. Maybe in that short term, that money's coming in, but in the long term, that can be very disruptive to your entire business, to the team. Eventually, that can lead to lost income and revenue because they're not going to be retaining those guests. They're going to come that one time and they're not going to come back because it wasn't a good experience. The person maybe doesn't know what they're doing, or their customer service is terrible. I've always heard you should hire slowly and fire quickly. I think there's still processes to follow to fire people in the correct way. But I definitely think that when it comes to the speed, you really want to take your time and make sure you're picking the right people for your team.
Hiring to me seems like driving through the turns and twisties. The way to lose a race is to punch the gas pedal in the middle of a 90-degree turn. Mm-hmm. And races are always won in the turns. So what do you do in a turn? Well, if you're a motorcycle advocate and you ride motorcycles, like I used to back when I was cool, you always want to make sure you're entering the turn at the speed you plan to be at when you're in the apex of the turn. So in other words, you're not braking in the turn, you're not speeding up. Technically you do as you're hitting the apex and you're exiting the turn, but you don't throttle up in a turn because you will wreck always. And in my experience, to reaffirm your point, I have made a couple hiring decisions where I hired too quick. I kind of knew they weren't right, but we had a need and I didn't want to wait. And I was like, well, this person will do. And then no, tragic. You end up with skating reviews. If in the case of a spa owner, skating reviews, they might blow up part of the business. You lose time in training them. You lose time in, training and onboarding and ramping and the rest of it. So you're better off. Go slow. In fact, I think the military has a perfect saying here, which is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
I like that. But yeah, and you're right. I mean, like I said, the amount of time and money that goes into training can be extensive. I mean, I've worked places before where like the estheticians trained for 4 weeks full time before they came on board. The massage therapist was like 3 weeks full time. So yeah, you're spending, you're paying someone to train them, and then you're paying them to be there to train. So it's like, and maybe you're pulling that technician, that's training them off their book. So it's like you're losing revenue there so they can train this new person. Yeah, it's just, I just can't stress enough that you really should like wait for, I understand, like, I get it. People panic. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to be losing this money. But in the long run, it is more of a loss when you just move too quickly. So, yeah. And then I think the other thing, kind of the last mistake that I see people doing on a regular basis is hiring people that they like. So it's like, oh, I have things in common with this person. This person seems fun. Like, I would like to hang out with this person, but are they the right fit for this job in this environment? There are plenty of people who I would have loved to hang out with outside of work, but they were terrible employees. Like, they were a lot of fun. And I'm like, oh, like, personally we clicked really well, but like on a business level, I'm like, oh no, no. So it's really trying to make sure, like, is this person the right fit? Did they give great examples? Are they communicating well? It's not just, oh, I would love to like go have a beer with them, or, whatever that may be.
And do not make the mistake of hiring friends or family.
Yeah. And it can get tough. I'm just trying to think in the past, like I never hired, my friends or family, but people, again, when you've got it set up where you're encouraging your employees to refer people, for other positions, do you hire people, from the same friend group, family group? I have, and it luckily worked out okay. Like, there were times when, my front desk staff, maybe their cousin, or it usually wasn't like a sister, it wasn't that close, like maybe it was a little bit more, maybe they were really close with their cousin, but it was someone that they socialized with, and yeah, it's not always the best situation when you've got them working the same shift. I think if you're going to do something like that, you can have them work opposite shifts, but it can also then get tricky too if you've got several people from the same family or friend group working for you. Like, they may become friends once they start working together, but let's say there's a wedding, and okay, well, there goes your whole front desk staff, because they're all, they all want to go to this wedding now. So it's like, now you're shutting your business down. Actually, you're covering the front desk, because which you may have to do sometimes, because of course, they're all going to go to the same event because they're all from the same family or friend group. But yes, you don't want them obviously bringing personal issues to work, and then they're working right next to each other at the front desk, and they're mad at each other for something that happened at home. So yeah, it's not ideal. I wouldn't seek that out. But if you do have your employees referring people, there's obviously the potential that they might be referring people who are family or friends, and you have to see if that will work for your environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody successfully hiring a family member for sure, a friend never. Yeah. Because the friend always tries to exploit the hiring individual, and it always ends in a lost friend in my experience.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I know for some people it's worked out, but it's not. I wouldn't recommend. Seek that situation out for sure. And then kind of the last section that I have for today is then, so you've got people there, you're interviewing, you've done your interviews, what were kind of some of the things that during that interview process you should be looking for? What would be the right people? Again, this was something we discussed last time, but really hiring for personality, training for skill. Yeah. So, obviously they have to meet minimum requirements. They have to have the proper license. If you need them to have a certain number of months or years experience, you want to make sure that they have that. But are there things that maybe this person still maybe needs to develop, or there's things that we can teach them? Like maybe they don't do prenatal massage or hot stone massage, but that's something that one of our team members can simply train them to do. Or there might be something that they have a weakness in, whether it's selling products, how to properly educate the clients to be able to sell products to them, whatever that particular skill is that they seem weak in. Is this something that we can invest time into training them, because they have this amazing personality, and I think they would be a really great team member. So that would be the first thing really to look out for.
Tell me about this personality stuff, because my head goes to, only hire ISTJs or ENFPs. So the Myers-Briggs 16 personality types. So when you say personality, unpack that. What does that mean specifically in your head?
Yeah, so like I'm not thinking specifics to do with any type of how they scored on a personality test. I'm talking about, do they communicate well? Can they speak well? Do they make eye contact? How was their handshake? Are they friendly? Do they seem like a positive person? And again, from your behavioral interviewing, you can get kind of an idea for how this person handles situations and interactions with guests or interactions with other team members. Again, by getting down to those questions of, I would always use the example of you have a client coming in and you realize it's, their 20th wedding anniversary. What would be something that you would do in that situation? Or going back to more from a behavioral interviewing question standpoint, going back to, okay, tell me about a time that you had a guest coming in and there was a special occasion. What was something you did for them and how did that turn out? So if that person's like, oh, I've never done anything special for a guest. I don't pay attention to their birthdays. I don't know when their anniversaries are. I don't really know those things about my clients. Okay, well, they're probably not engaging them in conversation, especially if it's like a hairstylist, let's say, like they have time to really talk to that client, get to know them. And naturally people are going to bring things up like that, especially if the client is comfortable with you. They're going to talk about things of a personal nature. People treat their massage therapist, their esthetician, their hairstylist like their therapist. So they're going to share those things with you. So that kind of stands out to me. If you've never done anything special, did you really connect with your guests in the past? Like, are you making a personal connection? And why aren't you doing anything for them? Why are you not acknowledging that? And again, if it's where I worked, didn't allow us to do that. They didn't allow you to write like a note card to that person. Like there's so many things you can do that are inexpensive and just like acknowledge the guest and make them feel comfortable. So again, using those behavioral interviewing questions to dig a little bit deeper about their personality, not giving them the Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
Fair enough. And the reason I ask is I think in particular, my domain of selling, there are certain personality types that are just not well suited to succeed in selling. And that's the same thing with, I don't know about any career, but I wonder if there's some place where some sort of behavioral or not behavioral screening with personality types in mind. Because, for example, I keep harping on the Myers-Briggs thing, but if you look at the Myers-Briggs personality profiles for any of them, you'll typically find, if not all of them, I believe, they'll have a section under careers to avoid. Like for me, don't become a software engineer. And I tried to do it anyway. And sure enough, within 8 weeks of the software bootcamp, I realized, oh my God, I'm going to throw myself from a very tall bridge if I don't get out of this. So I wonder if there's something there.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it sounds like maybe not.
It's funny you mentioned that. So like, I was just thinking back to like so long ago in high school and, taking these like career placement tests. And like you said, it would tell you like what you'd be good at or what you should focus on. And I'm pretty sure it told me I should be like a social worker, which I get that. It makes sense. I did go to school. I did end up then going to school for psychology and thought that was the path I was going to go down, and decided no. And I'm a nutrition and wellness coach as well. So I do love coaching people and working one-on-one with people. So I get that, but I'm also really good at running businesses, and it definitely didn't speak to my anything to do with, finance, or, it didn't direct me in that direction. So I don't know, I'm sure there's obviously science behind it. Do you need to go to those extremes, so to speak? I don't think you need to, but if you, want to have your potential applicants do that, I'm sure there are programs that you can have them go online and complete. Because I definitely have worked for corporations who utilized programs similar to that. I don't know specifically which one it was, but yeah, they did kind of make people complete these online surveys to see if it's someone we should move forward with. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
And then, during that interview, were they dressed for the part? Like, did they kind of understand the brand and the culture before they walked in the door? So like every business kind of has a different environment. Like, is this person going to fit in well with the environment that we have here? Is this, a very liberal environment? This person seems super conservative, and maybe this is not the right environment for them, or vice versa, where it's a very conservative environment. And I don't know, if this person's going to fit in well with the clientele that we have coming in. But really, just, does it seem like they had an understanding of what they were walking into, and of course, just good grooming, do they smell good? Are they dressed well? Is their hair, all of this good hygiene, you think it's common sense, but, you want to make sure that they had a sense for, they were prepared for this interview, and put some thought into, making a good appearance, because even though you may be having this person wear a uniform, what do their fingernails look like? Like, is this, especially if this is a role where this person is touching people, they have to have, extra good hygiene. And there's usually policies and procedures to do with, if you're, whether a massage therapist, esthetician, especially even nail technician, the length of your fingernails, whether you can have, polish on or not, like things like, just to make, when you're touching someone, that's going to affect the treatment. If this person has very long fingernails, if they're not willing to, shorten their fingernails, that's going to be disruptive to the massage service. So these are things you wouldn't even necessarily think about. If no one's ever mentioned them to you, you may not realize, okay, well, I can't wear my 3-inch fingernail. It's so funny. I have natural nails. I'm like, I can't remember that they like extensions on your nails. Like, that's not something you'll be able to do while you're working on a guest. So just, does it look like this is something that, and you can question that. Obviously, if someone came in for an interview and they got their nails done specifically for the interview, but maybe they don't wear their nails like that on a day-to-day basis, and they understand that when they're actually performing hands-on treatments, that's not something they'd be able to do. So, just paying attention to all of those different things to see, is this going to be the right fit? And then I always say, if you are on time, you are late. If that interview is at noon and you walked right through the door at noon, you're late. That candidate should be showing up at least a few minutes early. If not, I know I always arrived way early, and I sat in my car, and not to be a weirdo or a creep, and then I'd walk in about 15 minutes before my interview would start. But making sure, you're not, you want to, be able to walk into that interview and, relax, get settled in. Maybe you need to go use the restroom. So, I'm paying attention, like, did this person just come flying through the door, and my front desk staff is calling me and say, yeah, they just walked in and they seem kind of flustered, or, they'll let me know, obviously, yes, this person just arrived. I'm like, okay, yep, they showed up, 15 minutes before. But I think also just, that's to be expected. If someone is showing up late for an interview, again, outside of some extenuating circumstances, and if there was, did they reach out and say, like, I'm stuck in this situation, on such and such street, and the road is blocked, and I can't move. It's that up to you, obviously, if you want to give that person a chance or an opportunity. Most of the time, my experience was, if someone did show up late for an interview and I hired them, they're going to show up late for work. Whether that's they're just not giving themselves the proper time to plan for the unexpected that always seems to happen. Yeah, or if they're, I mean, people that are late, they're just always going to be late. There's no fixing or changing those people. And, you know, it's like everyone has that friend or family member that, you know, if the birthday party's at 3, they tell them the birthday party's at 2 because they know they're always going to be an hour late. Like, you lie to that person because you know you can't change them. That is the core of who they are. So yeah, so I always very much pay attention to, did this person arrive before the interview was scheduled to start? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm having flashbacks to the Air Force. If you're on time, you're late. That was one of the things they always said. So you would always need to be there 15 minutes early. But I'm also conflicted because on the one hand, that is a very American cultural idea. And I would say recently just got back from Spain, in Barcelona specifically. But that would be a lie because that was in 2020. So it wasn't quite just recently, but they have a very different view of time. But for the purposes of American cultural domains, namely work, I completely agree. You should be early, and for your own sake, frankly, it's not just about this obsession with, what would you call it? Gary V-ism. Yeah. Hustle harder, work 30 hours a day. It's more, you know, especially with an interview where you have no room for error and you don't want to position yourself to be, say, victim of a flat tire or the like. To me, it just screams you're not treating the interview seriously if you're showing up on time because you expose yourself to the possibility of being late. And if it's something important like your wedding or a funeral or, you know, your mom's birthday party, you don't, well, maybe your mother's birthday party might show up or not show up. But you would treat it seriously. You would go earlier. So I think it's a signal or a shorthand, whatever, for how they're treating the interview. The challenge, though, is, you know, I was just speaking to my past guest, Amir, on his challenges hiring as of today. And I think he said he spent last month $4,000 on Indeed. He got maybe 3 candidates that were worth anything. Half of them didn't show up. And the other 0.5 that did show up they were terrible. They didn't show up early. They didn't treat it seriously. And so it forces the employer or the hiring agent or whatever staff member to become needy. And so I think this comes full circle back to the idea of going slow to go fast, or slow is smooth and smooth is fast, or not hiring fast rather, which begs the upstream question of what are you doing to make sure that you're not in a position of need as an employer? So managing your cash flows and what have you. All this is very, very intertwined, but, you know, in an ideal perfect world, the candidate shows up early and they're prepared. They're not storming and flustered, you know, unless, God forbid, I guess I would allow it as the hiring manager for X company, let's say, or Y company, whatever. If they told me, hey, sorry, I'm late. My house caught on fire. My dog was thrown off a bridge and my grandma just died. And oh, by the way, I was in a collision and my car was totaled, but I was able to hobble here on one leg with my broken femur. Hopefully that's okay with you that I'm late. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. But in any other circumstance short of that, if they're showing up on the nose when the start time is, it's a telltale sign they're probably not the best candidate.
Yeah. And then really the last thing I have in making sure you're choosing the right people is I think it's really important that you're hiring people who are flexible. So open to learning new things or new ways of doing things, especially like you're hiring someone who has tons of years experience, like 20, 30 years, they've been doing this role. You know, people think they know everything. You know, maybe they will be less open to new policies, procedures, ways of doing things. So again, using those behavioral interviewing questions. So, you know, one that I would always use is, you know, if you could please describe a time when a company you were working for changed a policy or procedure, what did you do and what was the outcome? So like everyone's worked, especially if you work someplace, you know, you've been in the industry for a really long time and you've held the position for a while. Companies, you know, have new ways of doing things. They bring on new products, new equipment, the prices change. Maybe their cancellation policy changes. There's always going to be something new, like a new way of cleaning something, or just you know, a new product line that we're using, and you have to do things differently. There's always going to be something. So it's like, how did they adapt to that change? Were they a champion for that change? Because you want people who are going to be champions of change and open to it. You know, some people are really fearful and get really scared of, you know, anything that's out that could change in the near future. And in order to grow and evolve, you have to change. So you want people on board with your business that are open to growth, that are open to new ways of doing things, that can just, you know, help you take things to the new level. So that's really, that kind of sums it up for me. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of other things, but those are kind of the top things that I really look for to make sure that in that process, I'm choosing the right people.
The last remark you made has me thinking of Tribes, the book by Seth Godin. I think it's his most recent piece. And the whole book is largely oriented around why, I think is actually his subtitle of the book is Why We Need You to Lead, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to, or the book speaks to some degree, the fact that many people operate from a plane of, or position of fear. Mm-hmm. So they don't take risks. They don't turn to their boss and say, hey, I think this is a very silly idea, or dare I say stupid or idiotic idea. Here's why. You're not an idiot, to be clear, but this idea I don't think makes sense. Here's why. What if we were to try this? So I'm curious if you have thoughts on if that is something that is important to look out for. And maybe you don't care to have that when you're hiring a therapist or a esthetician or cosmetologist or what have you.
Oh, no, I'm always looking for that.
You're always looking for that. Okay, so you're looking for innovators. And I've found it's tricky to hire for, because on the one hand, if you have someone that is always filled with good ideas, but they're so untactful in how they deliver the contrarian idea. So an example of that, Michelle, that's a stupid idea. You're a moron. I can't believe you would ever think of that. We should never do that. In fact, you should quit and promote me. Here's the idea you should do, versus, hey, Michelle, I can see where you're coming from with that idea. Actually, it does make a lot of sense at first glance, but I'm wondering what would happen if we did this instead. Both are accomplishing the same outcome, but well, no, they're not, because in the former case, you're going to piss your boss off and they're going to fire you. But on the second, or in the latter case, you're going to be received with rave reviews. So how do you discern that? How do you sniff that out? Because it's in well, selling is like, well, I guess we all sell, regardless of the position that you have, esthetician, massage therapist, whatever. But how do you suss that out? Someone's aptitude for being able to deliver contrarian ideas in a way that's tactful and frankly won't piss you off. So like almost to hedge against your own ego, which we shouldn't have, but of course we all have. Are there ways that you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know if this totally answers the question, but like I always used to encourage people, like, come to me with problems, but also come to me with a couple of solutions. Like, what are some ways you think we should fix this? Like, we may have different ways of how we want to fix the problem, but if there's something going on in the workplace that you see, what would you do to fix it? Like, what do you think we should do to fix it? Like, what would be something different we could be doing? So, I mean, I like people, obviously, like, people have to be open to direction and change. It's not always going to go the way that they want it to go. So you want people that have that flexibility. But I also, as a spa director, as an owner, need to be flexible. I need to be open to suggestions. And I've definitely found, so when you have someone on your team and they're like very innovative, and if the ownership or management is not, that person's going to leave you and they're going to open up their own business. And that could be a great thing. Like, I always encourage people, you know, if you want to be an owner, you should do that. You know, I always tried to find out what people were super passionate about, and I'm not going to hold people back. If them running their own business is the best outcome, you know what I mean, that they should do that. I had many people over the years that worked for me for many, many years and went on and still, you know, have their own hair salons, spas, like that's great. Like you set the foundation, and it's amazing to see like what they were able to go and achieve. So yeah, it's like you want that good combination of someone who's flexible, who's innovative. So they have to understand obviously that it's not always going to be, you know, everything that they come up with, every solution or new idea won't be able to be implemented, but you know, we talked about this a lot on our last podcast too, just really being open to that. Like that's how you're going to have happy employees, is really listening to them genuinely, being open to ideas they have, because they may have some really amazing, a lot of things that I implemented over the years were not my ideas. Those are things that other people came up with, because they were in the room, you know, with the client day in and day out and could see the opportunity.
All art is theft.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard that damn quote, but it does
I've
have me thinking,
yeah.
Well, you could argue that if the law of conservation of mass, was that the second law of thermodynamics, maybe? I'm a philosophy major, not a physics major, but in any case, everything that was, and will always be, it's just a rearrangement of existing particles in a literal sense. Same with ideas. So your staff probably have ideas that are better than you. And by the way, what are you doing hiring staff that are not smarter than you?
Yeah.
That's a huge mistake. How about you go look for people that make you look, well, don't make you look dumb, but you subconsciously or intuitively feel dumb around, because that's why you hire them. I think, oh God, there's an interview with Steve Jobs. And of course I'm going to butcher the details here, but it's something like, I forget what he said verbatim, but it was something to that effect. I hired you to tell me what to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So why, like, it's not like what function do you serve otherwise, but you shouldn't be afraid to hire people that are smarter than you, because how do you grow your enterprise otherwise? You are literally incapable of doing that. In fact, there's another story that comes to mind of Henry Ford being interviewed on, I think he was interviewed. He must have, yeah, he was. Of course, he's been interviewed. And the interviewer, I'm gonna hack this story together, so bear with me. But it conveys the idea. The interviewer says, "Well, Henry, how does the cylinder combustion physics of your engine work?" And Henry turns to the interviewer and says, "I don't know. I pay a guy to know that. Go ask him."
Exactly.
Hey, Charlie, get in here. Answer this guy's question. This silly question. This heckler, this fanboy of the horse and buggy who rails against the idea of the automobile. Anyway, you should always hire people smarter than you and not be afraid to do that. And if you are, you have a problem. And the problem is EGO.
Yes.
Ego.
You want people who, I mean, of course, like who are passionate about what they do. They're the expert in their field, and they want to constantly learn about whatever and perfect their craft. I was never a massage therapist. I was never an esthetician. I was never a hairstylist. I was never a nail technician. So yeah, that's not my skill set. I hire people who are really good at that and, you know, really love to do those things. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what closing thoughts, if any, would you want to leave the audience with today?
Well, I hope that Amir is able to come back and watch this and maybe find some things from the first section. I really hope that even if, you know, anyone watching, listening, can pull a few key pieces out of this. You have to pick what's going to work best for your business. But, you know, stepping outside the box, trying something you haven't tried before, you know, if you're spending $4,000 a month on Indeed and it's trash, you've got to try something different. You know, it's like, what do they say? Like when you keep doing the same thing and expecting different results,
insanity.
Crazy. Yeah. So you have to try new things. I would try multiple things. But just pick one thing maybe from, you know, a different way of trying to recruit people. So whether that's, you know, reaching out to the schools in your area, being like, hey, I would love to come in and speak to your students, you know, or again, having, you know, looking at your schedule and seeing like, when can we do a job fair? When can we do an open house? Start and create that referral program, you know, whatever, just take one thing that you haven't done before and try it out. You don't have to spend $4,000 trying it out. Some of these things don't cost any money to try out. You know, those referral cards were pretty cheap to print out. You know, going and speaking at a school, obviously, you know, takes some time, but you know, it's you can try to do it maybe on a day that is a slow day for you, or on your off day, whatever you can do to take that 30 minutes, an hour to go and do that. But just to try one thing. And again, I think behavioral interviewing has helped me tremendously over the years. So I think be unbiased and fairly pick the right people. And last but not least, take your time. Take your time and make sure that you are hiring the right people for the right reasons. And I think that, that has helped me over the years to build really successful teams.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Well, pretend I am a spa director and I'm having challenges with my hiring or anything else within my spa, and I want to connect with you. How and where
do I
do that?
The best way to reach me is on my website, which is infinitewellnessconsulting.com. And anyone can go on there and book a free consult. So, whether you're a director, manager, owner, a technician, someone who maybe is looking to get into the industry, either as a technician or an owner or director, go ahead and book that free consult with me. We will chat and see how I can assist you.
Michelle for president 2024. You have my vote.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
I don't think that I want that job, but thank you for your vote.
No. Yeah, no, I don't know why anyone would. It seems like an absolute nightmare. Nightmare. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing this as usual. And who knows, you might have a round 3 in the coming months. So thanks for being on again.
I'm ready for it.
Awesome, Michelle. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.